welcome back to Lesson 4, Part 2. Last lesson you learned how to do green screening so that we could pull off that basic explosion scene, but without any backgrounds or anything exploding. It still looks a little bit not quite finished. So in this lesson we're going to go ahead and learn how to use an effect in After Effects that shatters things. There's actually a couple effects that do this, but we're going to learn the most basic one first today. So to get started, let's go to open up a clean brand new After Effects, not the previous lesson. So clean After Effects, and when it comes up we're going to close the welcome screen, and we are going to go ahead and bring in some files to use. So we're going to shatter some text. We're going to also put a background, a textured background behind it so it has a nice look to it. We will, in the project panel, import, go to your After Effects Lessons folder, find your basic stock footage folder that we have, and I have sent you the Ice Diffuse file, which will be in your Land School folder, so you may have to stop and move that file over into your training footage folder here. Select the Ice Diffuse and let's open it. Next, instead of using this JPEG as a new comp, the problem with that is that it's going to make it the size of the picture, which is square, and I want to keep our perspective on the screen size of a normal television. So we're going to make our own composition. Go to Composition, New Composition, and then let's make sure that your preset says HDTV 720 at 30 frames a second. And then let's make sure that your duration says 10 seconds. If it doesn't, highlight it and type 10 and then 2 more zeros. That's 10 seconds and no frames. Name the comp text shatter and hit OK. It's going to not sure what that was, little warning window. So what we're going to do next is create a title and put the ice behind the title. Let's put the ice in first. Drop ice into the composition named Text Shatter. It doesn't quite fit the screen, so we're going to make it larger. The best way is to select the layer for the ice and hit S on your keyboard to get scale to come up, and then just make the ice a little larger. Okay, now we're going to create a title. So go to the T and hit the T and click in your window, and let's type south. Now before you type the word south, you want to make sure that your paragraph alignment is set to centering, because if I type south right now and then, for example, go to the title and hit S to size it, it's going to size from the left because it's aligned left. The anchor point is kind of locked there. So if you want it to actually zoom in from the center of the letter of the word, then in paragraph we have to hit the center button. Now that'll move this so that the anchor point is now in the center. So I'm going to go ahead now and move the title back into the center of the screen so that I'm uncentering, it's in the center. So if I scale the text south, it will do it from the center. Now this is important because we are going to keyframe a scaling of the word south. What I'd like to do next is to get a nice purple type color in here. And we could put a solid color change in, which I'll show you first, but we're going to actually end up using a textured background. So with this, with the layer selected, you can go over to Character and hit the Character palette. Now in the Character palette, I'm going to make it a little bigger. You can do font changes. things that are bold or italics or other. You can also resize right here, same as doing it from the handles. You can also change color. If I hit this, I could go to any color I want, like that purple. I'm going to cancel that. You can also add a stroke with the stroke box. If you click that and then hit your color box, oops, sorry, click on it twice, you could add a color to the outside, and then if you're down here, you can change the thickness of the line. So that's all pretty cool, but we're not going to deal with any stroke on this. So touching stroke, cancel, selecting stroke earlier, we want to take the stroke off. It also comes back on if you click and go back in and pick a color again. The fill can also be turned off, so you get a nice hollow word. But I want to do this. I'd like you to make sure that you go ahead and change your color back to solid, hit the stroke, and turn it off. So we're back to our normal word here. What we're going to do is also look down here and find out there's more you can do to the text itself. We can make it taller or shorter, again, which is the same thing you could do from the handles. We can also space out the letters more or bunch them up. Okay. This does more of a stretch without changing space. And this adjusts as well. So as you can see, there are some definite things you can do here to your titles. Also make sure your font is a thick, bulky font. If it's thin, the shatter effect won't have large enough pieces of the text to shatter. So if you go into your fonts, you can click on a font, use your arrow key on the keyboard, and you can actually, oh, that's a nice one, skip through to different fonts. I'm going to go with Bauhaus 93. And alright, so now we're ready to do the next thing. I'd like to add actually a texture into this background instead of changing color. To do this, we need to go to Google. So I'm going to bring up the internet, bring up Google, and I'd like you to type in purple texture. And you're going to get some results here of purple textures. If you go to images, you can see quite a few of them. Now they all look pretty good, so I really don't care which one you pick, but we need to save one of these into our computer and make it the color of our actual letters. I'm going to go with this. So click on the one you choose. You're not going to use this image to save. Go to View Image. You get the full image. Right click, Save As, and save it to your folder inside of Lessons for Lesson 4. It's called Purple Fur Texture. That's fine. And I'll hit Save. I'm going to minimize the browser and now import this background. Whoops. Why is it not showing up there? I think I put it in the wrong place. Let me double check. Save picture. Yep. Oh, it says Lesson 4. Okay. Let me go back to After Effects. Oh, because I'm not in Lesson 4. Alright, let's go to Lesson 4's folder. Purple Fur Texture, and open. So let's take the purple fur texture and put it in between, right under the south text layer. Now yes, it covers the ice, but not for long. What I'd like you to do is to take the purple fur text layer and go to your track mat, which is one of the columns here, and select from here Alpha Matte South. And what that'll do is put the background into the letters. Now we have a cool purple textured south background. Okay. Next thing that you're going to do is apply an effect called, it's not called shatter, it's actually called, that's the more advanced one, CC Pixel Poly. grab it and drop it on the title. To be sure, drop it on the actual title in the composition. And if you were to scrub your current time indicator, you'll see that the south shatters. Now that's pretty cool, but we can do some adjustments to this to make it more interesting. In your effects controls, the CC poly effect has been applied, and you'll see there are some controls for this shatter. For example, the force, which is how strong it blows up. Right now it's moving like this. If I change the force, maybe 400%, it'll now shatter out even further. It had more force, a larger explosion, and it makes it go further out and still go down with gravity. That's a little too much, so I'm going to take it down to about 200. Let's see what that does. That's decent. Next, gravity. So the particles, the shattered particles, are moving down. You can have it be that way to have it be normal gravity, but I'm having it, the word is going to kind of hit this ice and then explode. So an explosion can go in multiple directions. So I'm going to change the gravity down to 0. Whoops. Which would make it essentially just explode straight out. Now, if you were to, and if you leave your current time indicator in the explosion area, you can watch the changes. If I make the gravity go negative, we can make the particles rise, which looks kind of weird. So let's take the gravity and put it at 0 so that the particles now come straight out at us. Now, the spinning, the number of times they spin. Right now, some of these are turning not even a full revolution. It has a 1 revolution setting. I'm going to take this wheel and spin it around another revolution. 2, 3. You, of course, could also just type in 3. But now I can see that these particles are turning a lot more. A little more action with the strength. Okay, now the overall force is decent. The speed and direction randomness, the direction is, kind of where it heads. It's going around 10%. If I increase it, it just becomes more random. The explosion does. If you go to speed randomness, you can have the different particles move at different rates out away from the explosion. The higher, the more random it is. They just kind of blow everywhere. The lower, it's a little less random. The spacing is the size of the blocks that are being broken up. If I go to a very high number, like 100, you'll find that there's less pieces to break. I'm going to bring it back down to about 15. Let's go about 30. So now when this one blows up, it blows up in 30 pieces. Okay, you can change this from a textured triangle shape to squares, but I'm going to leave it right where it's at. The start time is when the actual explosion occurs. You notice it starts here at the beginning. You can normally set keyframes, but this effect just has this parameter to fix. So for start time, I would like to set the explosion to go off at, let's say, 4 seconds. So we'll type 4. And now, when you scrub in the timeline, the title won't explode until 4 seconds. Alright, that's pretty good. Title's blowing up. So now let's make the title come in with a scale change and then hit the glass and blow up. So what you're going to do now is to go back to the beginning of the timeline. You can also hit home on your keyboard, which will bring it to the start of the timeline, and will bring you to the end. Make sure that you select south and have the S key hit so scale will come up. And let's actually go to 4 seconds so that the word is this big when it explodes, because we exploded at 4 seconds. To get to 4 seconds exactly, you could simply come over here and type 400, and it'll take you right to the 4 second mark, which is when it begins exploding. I'm actually going to make it go back 1 frame. I'm going to say 329, 1 frame less than 4 seconds, so it's still together. Alright, at this point, let's add a keyframe for scale at our current size. And that means that the word will come in and will be this size at this keyframe. If I back up to home and I change the scale to make south much larger, maybe, I don't know, 400 or so, I now can have it come from a large down to a small and then blow up as soon as it hits. We'll see how we like that. I'm going to hit the space bar to play this, so it will render in the timeline. When everything turns green, it means it's been rendered to the RAM, so it can be an actual video file and play at real speed, because this wasn't real speed. Here goes. Now that it's green, play again. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm not sure, maybe we want the title to stop and then be seen for a little while. I'm going to go to about 3 seconds. Move the keyframe back to there. And then let's watch this again. So it comes in, hits and stops, and then blows up. I think I like that. I'm going to make it go a little bit faster coming in. So let's move this keyframe back to 2 seconds. Now when you play it, it comes in, holds for 2 seconds, and blows up. Alright, one thing I've noticed that we might have to correct. If you look at the purple background inside of the word south, it's not moving with the actual letters. In other words, it's seeing through to the background and it's just like it's a photograph. I think I'd rather parent the background to south so that when it moves, south moves, the background stays locked. So what we'll do is we will look for our parenting tool, and we're going to parent the background to south by using the pick whip and connecting it. You can also simply, for the purple background, go to the parent and choose south. It's the same thing. But now you'll notice that the purple is lodged into the word south and doesn't just look like it's seeing through. Alright, so I mean it could have been done either way, but I think that's looks a little bit better. Now we need a sound effect for the blow up. So you're going to import, but first we need to grab the sound file. I will have sent you a sound file that will be in your Land School folder. So if you would go to your Land School folder and grab the sound file that I'm getting right now, the file is called Explosion Rocky, I think. No, Explosion Glass. That's the one. So grab Explosion Glass and take it into your After Effects training folder in your basic footage. And I'm going to grab and transfer over the Explosion Glass High. So once you have that, you can close your folder, go back to After Effects, and let's import this sound effect. Go to your basic footage folder, find the explosion sound effect, it's a WAV file, and then drop it into your timeline on the bottom. You get a short sound effect file. Now we can't really tell where the explosion happens or even hear it. So I'll scrub back to 0 and hit spacebar, and you'll notice you don't hear anything. In order to get sound to play in After Effects, this is to help save on RAM for video rendering, you have to actually hit the 0 key on your number pad. So hit 0, it will play and render the audio and then play it. Rendering the audio, and there's your sound. Okay, now if you don't want to have everything render and speed up your editing time, simply take your work area bar and move it backwards to just this area, maybe 4 seconds, so that when we render things, it only renders this area. So we'll go a little faster. So let's move this down. In order to see the sound, you can open the triangle in any audio file, open the audio. There's a waveform, which is a graphic visualization of the sound. Now you can see right where the explosion of the glass happens. So let's slide this out to about 4 seconds when the actual explosion occurs. If you want to be perfect with it, we can test it first. Alright, play it back with the sound. That was pretty much right on. And if you need to line it up, you can always come to your zoom and zoom in. But I'm pretty happy the explosion happens pretty much right at 4 seconds. So I'm going to make my work area bar go back and cover the whole thing again so that we can have the whole thing render out. So if you hit 0 on your number pad again, it'll play and you'll have the sound effect. Kind of cheesy sound effect, but gives you the idea how you can create something like this. Well, that's it. You're going to move on to lesson 4, part 3, where you'll learn another step in this process of doing shattering, but this time with other shapes and a different effect. And from there, you'll begin your first project using Adobe After Effects. Well, make sure you save this project to your After Effects folder, lesson 4, part 2.